Okay, good morning, Rajarshi, and a warm welcome to you on behalf of APAC News Network. So, what you would like to have the conversation with you? One, obviously, on the genesis of ProcessIT Global, and once in the genesis, after the genesis, what are the domains that you are working on? What exactly is in the portfolio in terms of the solutions and the services? Then, within the domains, in this time, what sort of use cases you have already sort of generated? Then we will look at the more or less the business roadmap. So maybe we can start with the genesis. That would be best.
Good afternoon, Rajneesh. Uh, I really like your question about the genesis of ProcessIT Global. So it goes back a couple of years. So when me and my two other co-founders, PV Vaidyanathan and Arindam Mitra, who are long-term business associates as well as friends. So we met over a cup of coffee and we were just discussing what exactly today the IT service industry is facing in terms of customer experience, why the delivery is not happening on time, where they get stuck, why delivery that can be completed within 6 months normally gets into an 8 months time period or at times to a year-long time period. For any services organization, this kind of delay happens due to different reasons. And we were just analyzing where are the gaps that stay in IT services industry and how it can be bridged. So that was the thought behind creating ProcessIT Global. And we it took us 2 years to formulate of what we gonna do, which are the specific technologies that we are going to start off with, and what are the technologies that we are going to build our capabilities on as we go forward. So 2020 actually gave us a lot of time, the traveling times were cut down and we sat down, we went back to our drawing board and we sat down and we figured out that there are two technologies which we should start off with, which has immense impact on how businesses are going to get conducted over a period of time. And those two areas, the technology domains, are cybersecurity and IT operations management. So that was the starting point, and the journey has been pretty smooth for us. Uh, that people have started realizing the importance of cybersecurity and better management of IT infrastructure, how critical it is today to deliver customer experience, to deliver services, to deliver products across industry vertical. That is most important. Today, even a normal retailer is thinking to go online. They're thinking to go digital. Say a shop. I can tell you an example. We have a small grocery shop in our locality. Now, today, they have gone online. They're using different mechanisms. So small vendors are also thinking of going digital. And he is concerned about security. That if customers are paying, is the payment secure? Am I giving a good interface? I mean, that is coming from a retailer who never even thought that he will ever go online. So the paradigms has shifted. Businesses are going online, businesses are going digital, and that is leading to a lot of automation which is coming into the picture. Now, the automation happens across different functions and processes within an organization. So we figured out that the two areas where we will have inherent expertise and functional experience when it comes to service delivery and enriching the customer experience when you are delivering the services. That is very important to ensure that the customer participates in the service delivery. That is also very important. So the ecosystem is, you have a customer, you have a service provider, and in between there can be system integrators also when it comes to large project execution. Okay, in such a scenario, it has to be a democratic decision where everybody is accountable for the roles and responsibilities that they play when they want to bring in those small changes which will enable them to accelerate their digital transformation and become future ready. So that was the genesis of ProcessIT Global.
So now, coming to the two focus domains, what you said, the IT ops and cybersecurity. So can you dive a little deeper into each of these domains? The IT ops you talked about a bit in terms of how you are delivering to the customers, what sort of domains, and what are the sort of solutions and services that you are offering in both IT ops and cybersecurity.
So, if you look at both cybersecurity, IT operations management, and AI ops, we do end to end. So, what we do is we do advisory, we do consulting, we do design and implementation, we also do operations and maintenance of the infrastructure that is getting created. Okay, so the technology areas where we primarily focus in cybersecurity. So cybersecurity is a very broad term. So it has a lot of components coming up even from AI ops piece. Okay. So if you look at the cybersecurity piece, we do deliver our services around identity access and governance. We do deliver our services across compliances. We do deliver services around setting up multi-factor authentications, setting up privilege access management, setting up file integrity monitoring, identity tracking. Okay, we we operate in that space where we also provide services around the endpoints. Okay, so endpoints today are very critical for any organization. So if you look at the cybersecurity space, what we do, so we actually do an advisory where we can do a system study, we can tell what to go with, which are the steps that they will follow. So cybersecurity work on a framework which is very widely accepted, and we do follow that framework methodology, which is NIST 1.1 framework. So you have an identify pillar, you have a protect pillar, you have a detect pillar, you have a respond pillar, and a recover pillar. So we actually work on across these five pillars and give a 360-degree approach towards cybersecurity. Again, cybersecurity is a living process. One has to understand it is a living process where we continuously help organization to improve upon their weaknesses. Okay, it's not that once you implement something, it's the end all of the story. No, it is a process. It requires a very warlike approach where you have to do everyday planning, everyday execution, everyday monitoring. So it's a kind of a process that needs to be repeated every day without any complacency. Okay, there is no room of complacency in cybersecurity. You become complacent, you will be attacked. Okay, so what we bring to the table is we actually help organization to devise their cybersecurity framework, which means what they should do, how the policies will be governed, how it has to be monitored. We also help organizations to take up which are the products which will meet their specific requirement. Okay, so for example, in a healthcare industry, you require to be compliant as per HIPAA. For any large organizations, SOX compliance is very much required for a payment or a information systems that somebody is using. Then they have to be PCI DSS compliant. Okay. Similarly, ISO 27001 is mandatory almost. Okay. So these are the compliances that we advise organizations. We can also do audits to check where they stand in terms of their readiness. Will they get those certifications or not? Those are the areas that we provide services upon. Now, what we do when we do design implementation, we accelerate the adoption. How do we accelerate the adoption? So if an organization chooses a certain amount of products, we actually ensure that how it can be implemented faster. Okay. So we have created our own IPs around deployment methodologies. Okay. Which enables organizations to fast track their cybersecurity implementation. That means you are accelerating a portion of their digital transformation journey, which enables them to spend more time on the other aspects of their digital transformation journey and become future ready at a fast pace.
Okay, I have one query. Obviously, as I understand, you are doing an advisory, a consulting, and a design implementation role, and even helping organizations to meet their compliance standards, doing auditing. Now, this would involve, and as you said, cybersecurity is such a vast field, but a bit fragmented, and there are multiple products, if I may say, even operating or doing similar functionalities. So, as a service provider, how much I would not use technology agnostic, I would rather use product agnostic you are. Is there a partnership with a certain set of products, or any product recommendation from your side will depend on the user? How would you ensure? Because again, there are multiple vendors in different areas in cybersecurity. So, how do you take care of that?
So, when it comes to the advisory piece, it is very simple. We sit down with the customer, advise them what they will require, hear them what they want, and do a marriage of the needs and wants and the future direction, create those specifications and hand it over to the customer. Leave it to the customer to make a choice which products that they want to go for, because this is an absolutely customer decision based on their relationship with different kind of vendors. Okay, some may have relationship with Microfocus, some may have relationship with any other vendors. Okay, so we leave it on to them and ask the customer that these are the specifications that they need to meet to address the customer's requirement and the customer's future roadmap. So we cannot, as an advisor, we cannot be vendor specific. We are vendor agnostic, and we provide them with the specification that they need to do when it comes in terms of choosing a products. Okay.
Okay, I might use, considering your background and experience with open source technologies. So it might not be vendor agnostic, but would you be recommending more adopting the open source technologies than vendors who are using proprietary technologies?
Rajneesh, it's a very valid point. My love for open source will never die. That is for sure. Okay. Having said that, Customers have specific requirements, have specific uh, time frames. Open source is a very vast area, and normally organizations do not have that internal skill sets to manage an open source environment. Then creating an open source environment specifically in areas of cybersecurity requires a lot of investment from the customer side on their digital journey in terms of manpower. Okay, which leaves a lot of holes, because if one manpower leaves the organization, there is a hole which is created. So you need to have a pool of personnel who will be able to manage it. So organizations which have got a sufficiently large team, say for example an ITS organizations which has a sufficiently large pool of technologists around with them, they might opt for, if the open source products meet the requirement. Otherwise, it is advisable to go ahead with a vendor which gives them support and has a roadmap. So any product or even any open source project that you pick up need to have considerable support ecosystem around it, and should have a roadmap. So you can't put across a framework based on a certain technology and then absolutely rip and replace the very next year because has gone wrong with them, isn't it?
Obviously. Another question out that this answer first needs to understand a bit more on the domains and the type of enterprises you are working with. But my question generally is, and especially this is for the cybersecurity part, larger enterprises nowadays, apart from the security is handled by a separate CISO, not by the traditional CIO. And the CISO would be a highly evolved security person. He or she normally has a fairly evolved security team, and they normally work with the large security vendors and or the large MSPs, if I may say. So in that scenario, and for the sort of services and businesses as that you are offering, where do you fit in exactly? This would have been more ideal for, say, mid-size organizations or people who just doesn't have the capability nor the resources, as you mentioned. But for large enterprises with a fairly settled security team, where do you fit in?
A very valid question. I will give you a background of the cybersecurity services market globally and how it is transpiring in India. Okay, as we stand today, the cybersecurity services market is a whopping $87.6 billion market. Services, okay. In India, in 2009, it was $4.3 billion. Okay, in 2022, we expect it to be $7.3 billion, and by 2025 we expect it to be at around $13.6 billion, only services, which means we are looking at a CAGR of nearly 21%, which is by far the fastest growing segment in the entire IT space. Okay, cybersecurity is ever changing. Okay, so you need organizations like ProcessIT Global, which are specialized in delivering cybersecurity services because of domain focus. Okay, we are only focusing on this domain and we are delivering services across projects. Now, to tell you, uh, we are currently, as we speak, the most of our customers are large PSUs, banks, smart cities. They are our customers, and these customers do agree on a turnkey project with large SIs. Having said that, large SIs today depend on us in terms of delivering the cybersecurity architecture and implementation and furthermore services to their customers, which means that the customer acquisition journey and the relationship is intertwined between a large SI and a specialized partner and the requirement of the customer. So it's a very nice, very matured ecosystem that exists, which allows organizations like us to foster, to grow, and to reap the benefits of that compounded annual growth, average growth rate, the CAGR that I was talking about.
But since you are talking about the customers, most of the are PSUs and government clients, so as to say. So, is this working with the large SIs a way to get into the L1? Because there will be those complications involved. So, how do you use that as a strategy? And I know one, Coal India, but apart from that, some of the customers who are referenceable.
I see the point is I won't be able to reference more, but a large public sector bank today uses our services. Okay, um, at least a large defense, very large defense organization uses our services. Okay, uh, almost 7 smart cities uses our services. A large
These
power
smart cities
generation.
are which states, if you can even indicate that it's seven smart cities.
Uh, Primarily in Maharashtra, Gujarat, Jharkhand, Uttar Pradesh, and the large scale public sector bank is based out of Delhi. Okay, that much I can say. So, large government department. So, uh, basically under the Ministry of Finance and Industries, they work on our services. In Uttar Pradesh, a large power generation organization also takes our services through our SI partners. So they not much in eastern part of India. It's primarily north and west. That's where the customers are.
But you have primarily focused till now only on PSU and government, not looking so much at the enterprise side.
I will tell you if you look at the market today, okay, the spending is happening on. If you look at the cybersecurity services market, 50% or more is BFSI, government and PSUs, and then comes IT, ITS, and then enterprise.
So 50% means you mentioned 2022 the market will be roughly about 7 point some billion. So at least
Yes.
3.5 billion will now be spent by between government and the BFSI.
BFSI. And so if you look at 75% is between three industry verticals: BFSI, government and PSUs, and IT, ITS.
Okay.
And the rest is others. You might call it as enterprise, you can give it any. It can be the healthcare sector, it can be enterprises, manufacturing. Manufacturing is also doing good. They're also thinking big in terms of cybersecurity.
So this brings to the, and this will be relevant for both your operations, IT ops as well as the security.
Yes,
Uh,
IT ops is in India, worldwide. Right now, we call it as AI ops, which means automation everywhere and artificially intelligent response as well. Okay. So automation is the key because if you start automating, you are freeing up resources and you can concentrate more on innovation. It's a journey. Why do we do digital transformation? Because we want to become innovative. So to innovative, you need to free up people who are just doing lights on and lights off in the data center. No, you free up that resources and involve them in innovation. Okay, it requires a reskilling, but innovation is the way to be sustainable, resilient going forward. Okay, so there is automation everywhere. In India is also fast catching up in terms of AI ops. But yes, IT operations is a big focus today. And the next step from ITOM is AI ops.
and primarily, if we look at the again the customer side, uh, IT ops will also be the same places that you mentioned,
More
because
or
you are
less the
doing.
same, absolutely, more or less the same split. Okay.
Okay. And what is your go-to-market approach? Since you are again primarily handling the large PSUs, BFSI, and government segment. So, what is your primary GTM?
So the primary GTM is there are three. Okay. One is through alliances. Okay, we have alliances across SI partners as well as two OEMs. So if you distinguish between the two, so there is an SI alliance which is working, and there is an OEM alliances which is working. Okay, there are 8 times when you need both the alliance to work together. Okay, and then there is a direct and marketing team, direct sales team. Okay, which works with end customers and gets the orders out. So right at this moment, there are three GTM. One is direct, the other one is through alliances. Out of the alliances, there are two divisions. One is OEM alliance. The second is SI alliance.
So, within the OEM alliance, who are the leading OEMs that you are working with, and same about the SIs?
If I name if I name a couple of one, if I forget anybody, uh, I will be dodged. So let's not get into whom I'm working with, whom I'm not working with. But definitely we are working with with most of the leading brands.
Okay. And since now, as you mentioned, you are about 2 years. So, if I look forward to the next 3 to 4 quarters, uh, in terms of the focus area, so this can be in terms of expansion of services offerings, expansion of geographies, domains, or whatever. So, what are the main focus areas of growth for the next 3 to 4 quarters, especially keeping in mind this whole pandemic situation, which is still a bit ambiguous? We don't know. It's looking a bit normal, but you never know when things will again change. So, how are you looking at it?
I will correct you. So we sat in 2018, but the organization was actually formed in 2020, 21st September 2020. Okay, we are not even a year old. Okay, having said that, right at this moment, from a services point of view, we are very strong on AI ops and then AI ops portfolio and cybersecurity. We intend to in the road world, we intend to grow in terms of our service delivery capability in DevOps and DevSecOps. Linux and open source infrastructure is always there. So I carry a legacy of Linux and open source. So can't help it. That is already there. So it will be DevOps and DevSecOps, and then we will look at cloud migration. Okay, so taking up workloads, uh, say a large scale SAP needs to go to cloud. So how do we enable them to go to cloud at a faster pace? The philosophy of the organization is fast tracking digital transformation. You can go to cloud, but if something that can happen in 12 months, can we make it happen in 6 months? That's where process IT comes into the picture. We fast track digital transformation through either our deployment methodology, through tools. We try and automate this so that it is free of human errors and it is rapid in terms of deployment, rapid in terms of standardization, rapid in terms of service delivery, and a picture perfect project management experience where a customer can actually click on the progresses, see the red flags, and prepare themselves well in advance that if there is a bottleneck that can happen, how can we remove those bottlenecks? So Process IT only believes in fast tracking digital transformation. There are technologies, and if you take 2 years to implement the technology, you are actually losing the competitive edge because somebody might take it over at a faster pace. So we actually fast track through our services the digital transformation journey of any organization. So in the roadmap, Linux and open source infrastructure, application delivery, DevOps and DevSecOps, that's there. There is one very important area which Process IT today works, and that's apart from our services, IT services, we also deliver intelligent solutions. So that's more of a healthcare vertical based approach where we are advocating better healthcare for all. So it's the mode of those healthcare services delivery is through digital technologies. So if you really look at what we intend to do, we are trying to build up a framework which is NDHM compliant. And we are also looking at geriatric care as an important area where we are trying to contribute in terms of creating a social engagement platform which allows geriatrics to live their life better. Okay, so that's an area which we also focus on.
Also, in terms of the current infrastructure and manpower resources, what is the status there?
We are close to around 30 people. We are 30 people strong, and we intend to double up by this year.
So right now the development center is that Kolkata one only, or do you have other development
It
centers?
is spread across between Kolkata and Delhi.
Okay. And any plans to go to other geographies also?
We plan to expand to Bangalore and Mumbai. The next set of recruitments are primarily for Bangalore and Mumbai.
Okay. Okay. This looks good for the time being. Thanks for it, and we will definitely keep in touch. And so, where are you now? In Kolkata or Delhi?
So I am in Kolkata right at this. I'll be in Delhi by next week.
Okay, so maybe once in Delhi, we will definitely like to catch up.
Yes,
And
100%.
apart from editorial, because we have two large programs also exactly associated with the category. One is large healthcare, where more than
Okay.
100 hospitals across the country will
Perfect.
be
Perfect.
there with the
Perfect.
health secretary. We will share that detail, and then
Perfect.
this will be end of September. And in
End of
October,
September.
yes, I will share the detail. I'll ask my colleague from sales and marketing to share the detail. And then there
Perfect.
is a cloud and security summit also, where again, as I said, it's a government and enterprise. So the
Okay.
defense secretary will be the chief guest, and then we have the government organizations. We have some of the smart cities also there. So we'll share the
Perfectly fine.
details.
Perfectly fine. That's a perfect forum for us.
Exactly. So I will, and once in Delhi, you are there. We would surely like to catch up.
Perfectly fine.
Definitely.
Okay.
Thanks a lot.
Thank
Acha,
you
can I
then.
have your official email ID? Don't have your